If you've been with me for a while, or if you've ever dived deeper into human design, you've probably heard me talk about the new paradigm, which is really interesting because when human design was first downloaded or channeled in 1987, it was revealed to the founder, Ra Uru, that 2027 would be a real pivotal year for human history and that it would be a changing of eras, which is wild to think about that we're literally nose up to 2027 now, and we've seen how much our paradigm has shifted so radically in the last few years. And always with a new era starting, you always see the glimpses of what that new era is going to look like before you enter into it fully. But because it's so different and has such a different energetic signature than where we are now, it can feel very charged for people. Either we think we have to fully be terrified of it, or we think that we have to rely on it so heavily that we become powerless. We feel relatively powerless compared to the new thing. So I've wanted to talk about AI as it relates to the new paradigm and the consciousness that we should have around AI, because it's coming whether we like it or not. The way that we interact with it can be decided by our consciousness and our attitude that we choose to have to it. The way we see it slotting into our goals for life, right? The way that we have priorities for our lives as human beings, and the fact that that matters more than the advancement for advancement's sake, or technology for technology's sake, or keeping up with the world for keeping up with the world's sake. So the first thing I want to say is that all the different uses of all technology is not going to be either right for everyone or wrong for everyone. It's on us to really authentically explore how much of it and which pieces are right for us to pull on. But let's talk about artificial intelligence as a whole, because there's so many other types of new technologies that are going to come in and radically going to change our lives, most of which we can't even see what they are just yet. Quantum computing, mark my words, is going to be much bigger than artificial intelligence. But AI is the one that seems to be sort of coming first. And most of us seem to be equating AI with chatbots. That's really, artificial intelligence is Google, but Google's been around for years. When we say AI, most of us are thinking about chatbots. So the consciousness with which we can use a chatbot is two things. One, we can use it to enhance our inner transformation and our becoming. And the second one, which is the slightly more disempowered, lazy, or going after the shiny carrots, wanting quick results without doing the inner work or the inner transformation or the inner action that life is asking you to take, is to try and replace your journey with the technology. So one is as a pure tool and aid for you, but you understand that you're still the one in charge. And the second one is, I don't feel like I'm in charge of my life. I feel like it's more important that I keep up with what everyone's doing. I need to write 20 emails at this kind of speed because I believe that that's what's going to make me successful or belong or keep up with life or be in charge. So we have to be very, very intentional, because it would be easier to say, don't use it or use it for everything, right? That would be like easy advice to take. And there's so many people who are already saying that kind of stuff. Where it gets more nuanced is to read your own energy and to see exactly what you're using it to do. So my rule of thumb advice from a consciousness perspective is, if you're using it in any scenario where you think it's going to rob you of the inner becoming that this situation that you're facing in life is asking you to do on yourself, then that is an incorrect use, because you've missed out on the whole point of the gift of the situation and why life has brought it to you in the first place. Is it's trying to nudge you to change something about yourself. So for example, if you are all of a sudden letting it solve all your conflicts for you and write scripts on how to deal with a friend who's upset at you, you're the one who loses, because you could be using the situation to get brighter and smarter and more in charge of your own being and your own essence and your command of how you relate to people and communicate and have connection. And you are instead deferring the development of that inner skill, and you're abdicating that from your responsibility. But ultimately, when we are souls departed from this world, we are going to be crushed if we know that our human selves ever even kidded ourselves that we could feel good by abdicating ourselves of the responsibility of becoming humans that we dreamed of being in any tiny ways, right? So wherever we were trying to avoid that, the soul is going to be disappointed. If you want to make it summarize something for you, edit something for you, curate something for you, find something for you, do anything that isn't really your addition to a project. So for example, if you are an editor, you still ultimately have to be the one who gives it the glance over and puts your flair in it. And maybe you can use it as an editor's assistant. Or if you're not editing at all, you can use it to edit. So there are going to be many, many wonderful things that it's going to aid us with, and so many things that it is going to relieve humans of having to do, which we're then going to see as basic menial tasks compared to the gifts that are going to come online from within us, that we'll see those are the real priorities of what we spend our time on. We can't even see what they are yet. So the AI is actually coming in at a perfect time to start relieving us of those things, so we have more of that empty space. But we just have to keep very much an eye on, am I using this instead of missing instead of seeing the opportunity that there might be in this situation or in this conflict or in this difficulty that I'm having, to really actually help me tweak something inside so that I rise to meet the moment. And in doing so, I've already risen. Like, my vibration has now risen. It doesn't go back down. So I've gone one step up on the road in some facet of life that is more reflective of who I really am capable of being. So tied to that, we have to be very careful of not being capitulated into it when someone or something tells us it makes things easier. That's when you have to have your eyes like widely switched on and say, hold on. Am I trying to make this easier because it's actually going to relieve me of time, space, energy to become better at what I do? Or because I'm afraid, or I don't want to take the time to sit with what is the uncomfortable feelings, and I'm buying into this lie that more information and something that is smarter than me, quote unquote, is gonna relieve me of my temporary discomfort. If we don't cross over that bridge of initiation that any discomfort actually promises us, that's what discomfort is, and pain and worry and anxiety, they are initiations, mini initiations that we go through all day, every day. And if we're circumventing them by believing that a technology is gonna relieve us, it's just like, it's the same as, popping a pill every time you need something rather than address the issue. And both have their role. But ultimately, we just have to know that it is not something that we need to buy into. We are the boss of technology. Technology does not have a consciousness of its own. It was not created, does not have a soul implanted into it by the creator, by God, by light, by the universe. It can be, to a certain extent, it can be intelligent, but the things that shape the becoming of this world, reaching a type of world that is a heaven on earth, completely depends on the humans that infuse the intention behind all these tools. The exact same way that basic tools like a car can be seen to run someone over or get someone to the hospital, AI is just that on steroids both ways. It's just a horse. A horse can damage someone or it can rush someone to safety. It's a scalpel. It's it's a hand. A hand can do damage or it can love someone to life. It can heal someone. That's how we need to think about all technology. There is no technology that's ever going to come that is going to be bigger than us, because we are ultimately the holders of the most commanding thing on the planet, which is a piece of the divine that is temporarily taking a shape in a human skin and in a human avatar and a human format. So we also have to go into this feeling empowered that it's still always going to be us calling the show, and we have to not give in to fear and illusion that one day they're going to be smarter than us, or they're going to take over us, or they're going to do whatever it is. So those are my sort of opening thoughts, and I feel like it is going to have parts in anyone's journey where they are going to think, am I missing out by not doing what everyone else is doing? Am I getting it wrong if I don't get AI to write my newsletter because that's what everyone else is doing? And then the sort of assumption in that is that I'm somehow not as good, or mine is not going to sell as well, or mine is not going to whatever. But, Taylor, you sent me a reel that I found super interesting, which was about how, take it the other way. And I'm paraphrasing this reel here. Maybe we can link to it in the show notes. But what I got from the reel was that if we're receiving hundreds of newsletters and we kind of assume that most of them are written by AI, we're not going to really want to open them because we're not getting anything from the human. That is the reason why we even signed up to the newsletter, for example. And so what if it ends up swinging the other way, and that we value human to human more than we value, something that a machine can smartly do? Like, who cares? So what value is that going to give me in my life? It's like selling me on stuff better than someone else can, but I'm not here to be sold to. I'm not here to be treated like a piece of technology that another piece of technology can just hack and figure out how I work. Like, I want someone to meet me where I am at the human level, at the soul level. I want to feel connected to another human. I want to feel like the humanness of this world is what gives the color some texture. So, if none of it feels right to you, I'll also say to you, don't join any of it until you feel like your authority gives you the okay on it. And you don't need to make that the fact that it doesn't mean it's wrong for everyone. It just means that you're perfectly where you are meant to be at with it. So there's so many different layers to this going on, and I'm sure we'll make this a ongoing conversation. And honestly, please send us your questions, the specific things you're curious about, because I'm, already sensing that we'll do a follow-up to this. But I mean, we have so many thoughts, and we've been talking about this so often just between the two of us, where no one really knows where the line is. And so we can't be looking to someone else's, rules, their own individual rules with it and how they're using it for the cues. But we can just be like, we all don't know how this is going to shape down. And let's keep having open conversation about the things we like, the things we don't like, the things we fear. The places where we're hoping it's going to make our life, do our life for us, and where we're abdicating our becoming. And let's remember that that's the one thing that is most important about life, is that we are taking charge of our own becoming. Like, that is the one thing that we never want to give away above anything else, no matter what's going to come down the track. Because trust me, there's going to be a lot of times when our inner voice is going to say, are you sure you don't want to? Are you sure you don't? Look at this person and look what they're doing. And so you have to really trust your own nous and double down on that, because the whole point about figuring out life is not about measuring what's working for everybody else or not working for everybody else, or what seems to be a successful help, but trusting that everyone was buying Bitcoin and now all of a sudden gold is big. And, everyone was saying that, China, China, China. And now people are asking questions. Like, these are just observations. Look how quick the world is changing, is what I'm saying. That if you don't jump on a trend that it seems to be swooping the world, firstly, it's probably your perception of the world, because nothing swoops the whole entire world these days. Those days are gone. But also that actually sometimes the times when you feel most tempted to swoop in on something that seems like such a given, if you're not getting the full okay with your authority, hold on stronger, because you're going to see the exact reason why your authority told you not to do that for yourself.
Right. And the reason why innovation is so scary, especially innovation at this pace, is because there is so much unknown. And we were speaking recently about how it really does actually, and this is not me thinking that there's this nefarious thought behind it, but it really does benefit them, for whoever is benefiting from AI, for us to feel as if this thing is completely out of our hands, as if it is off the rails, it's going to explode, it's going to have every piece of information that could ever exist on this planet. When in reality, we got an email this week asking if our data could be shared with the meta training data, and because everyone should know that the information that is training these AIs is selected by someone. It's not just wide open anything on the internet, like the AI is pulling from the content on our app or anything like that. That information is selected, and it has to be um, given over to them. They have to have permissions from the people who own that information. So when you revoke the ability to use that information in the training data, that specific way of explaining maybe a set or a concept or something is not included in that training data. So the longer we get down the track of this existing, the longer, in my opinion, or the more we will actually be asking the question of, well, what is the information that's actually training this piece of technology? We'll be selecting which of the AIs we want to use based off of the quality of the training data that each of these things are pulling from. Uh, Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So just to give our people some background, it was the email that we got from Meta saying, basically giving us a link if we wanted to opt out of allowing everything that was on our socials to be used to train their own Meta AI. And we had the option to opt out, and we did. And that means that legally they can't use any of the stuff we've ever posted on Facebook and Instagram and whatever to include in the way that they teach their AI to learn and amalgamate information. So if you are getting any of those emails, I would advise you, if that's something you want to do it, because I think if you don't opt out, they'll just assume that you want to opt in. And we are also going to, and I think it's helpful that we share this, we're also going to post something, terms and conditions on our website that we saw another site doing that made us think that it would be a smart thing to do as well, that we specifically do not we declare that we do not want this information being repurposed. It is, illegal to pull on this type of information. It can't pull on information anyway that's behind, like, a private product is looking on the internet mostly. So stuff that's in our app, that's a whole other, it definitely can't do that, but it was definitely trying to take stuff from our Facebook and our Instagram. So continue what you were saying about how it's going to curate, like different AIs are going to pull from different data sets.
Right. So I think it's helpful to kind of compare it to something that already exists, because it is feeling like this scary thing, but it really is going to be like any other piece of technology that we've experienced. So, in the same way that Netflix has to pay licensing fees to, say, Legally Blonde, which has existed for forever, but they would like the movie Legally Blonde on their platform, they pay a licensing fee to the people who own that content. I believe that same thing will happen with these AI platforms, is that they will have to pay licensing fees to you for if you have a set of data that is valuable to them, that would be helpful to their training data, they will need to pay you a licensing fee in order to use that training data. It's set up that way. And I actually, like I said, it benefits them for us to not quite understand where that's going, so that they can get us to accept and give them that training data before those laws come into place.
Where they'll have to pay to license it. And what's so interesting about this is that life always sorts itself back to the correct themes front and center, because one of the things to know about this new paradigm is that we're moving from, there are three different levels of energy in society according to human design. The first one is personal, individual. The second one is tribal, and the third one is collective. And this era that we're coming out of now was a collective focused era. So it was very much about a time in the last 400 years where we've built institutions and organizations, and we've had globalization, industrialization, all these massive movements. And now we're moving into a time that is more about the individual level. And so ironically, even though it feels like the power is going to be in these big tech people's hands, it's actually going to go back to the individual, because what we will value, what will this end up will do, what will, excuse me, what this will end up doing is making people value the individual content, because who's creating good quality information? It's not, in a world where it can get you any information, what do we want is we want good information. So more is not always better. And we will actually get to, oh, for example, I want to know what Melissa Wood says about meditation. I'm going to look at the AI that she's licensing her information about. I always say Melissa
Exactly.
because I know she
We
listens
just
and
love
she
her.
doesn't mind me saying her name, but like, do you know what I mean? So it's going to come back to us gravitating. You can't make humans change what they care about to a greater degree. So we're going to want to know from the people. It's this time anyway, the Aquarian age is about human to human. So we're going to find each other no matter how many seeming barriers look like they're leading us in a different direction. We are only going to become more together rather than more separated. We are going to become more connected rather than disconnected, or sort of, disassociated from human connection, because we just end up, speaking to tech. And there will be some people who do go that way because they don't yet have the consciousness that feels uncomfortable to them. But then they will also get to a point where they feel numb enough or dissociated enough or dissatisfied with life. It's just we all have different levels of what we're willing to put up with, and we all are slightly more, some people are more energetically tuned in sooner in their journey than others, but we're all getting there in the end. So this is ultimately something that is going to turn out very positively, even if there's a small percentage of people that are using it with good consciousness. Because, and this is one of the things that I say in the Decision Maker, the new feature on the app, that one person with consciousness, you know how you always hear that thing of like, you're so powerful, you're more powerful than you realize. The reason why that's even stronger now is because so many people don't realize that they're powerful, that one person who remembers that humans are powerful can have such a wide impact on so many humans' behalves, because of the amount of mass shift that creates, like in an average, right? So just because some people are going to maybe lose themselves or suffer with mental health issues, and we all will to certain degrees, it is going to get there. We are sometimes gifted with being uncomfortable enough to have our divinely timed wake up moment where the shift becomes easy. So have faith that we are going to find each other through everything, because that's what this whole era is intended for, is that it's back to human to human. It's no more top down structures. It's no more pyramid structures. It's no more, one person above everybody else. It's like, oh my gosh, we are drawn towards the essence of the person, not what the person can do for us. And the mistake is not to think that replacing the human that can do everything for us with a tech that can do everything for us. It's a human that I can co-collaborate with, who's on my level, who I'm not better than or worse than or powerless over, or who makes all my decisions, or who's more of an expert than me. But I see them in their light and they see me in mine. And we all are okay with everyone doing their own unique tasks, basking in the task that someone else can do without feeling like you have to do it yourself. And letting AI do the things that are inhumane to ask other humans to do. Wouldn't it be great if that's what technology ends up? I mean, it has done that for us. Technology creates so many things that we now would never even think to ask humans to do for us. And now we need to remember that AI can do the same. It's at its highest expression, it's here to liberate humans, all humans, into new levels of freedom, levity, and creativity. And when we haven't been in that mindset, that is when man has enslaved other man to be that way. So it's imperative that we use this with a no separation mentality and not a separation mentality, because otherwise we will enslave other humans, but just in different forms, just not in manual labor.
The other layer to it, having played with this a lot, like I'm very fascinated by AI and I've spent a lot of time playing with it and trying to understand it. And I will say that there is a difference between knowledge and understanding. There's a difference between information and understanding. So the way even that these artificial intelligences are being trained, we have to also be wary of the fact that feeding information to it does not actually equal it understanding that information. Because if you think about your own life, right? The way that I learn is through life and experimentation. I have to actually experience something in my life for something to actually click as an understanding for me. And there's layers and layers and layers throughout my life that of experiences that have stacked on each other that
Mm.
lead to a moment of understanding something truly. So for example, there's so many conversations that I've had with Jenna about human design where she has told me information that she deeply understands at a certain level, at her level. And then sometimes, even 3 years later, after you've told me a piece of information, all of a sudden I'll come to her from an experience I've had that information all of a sudden clicked into understanding. And I'll say, "Is that what you've been saying this whole time?" And she's like, "Yeah." So let's not forget, knowledge and information are not understanding. So when you are asking this intelligent database of information sorting and processing, let's not pretend that it has a better level of understanding than what
Mm.
your soul can have in the progression of its experience or in the progression of its way of learning.
100%. And it's the exact same as the internet in the sense that the internet is the Wild West. Whatever you read on there doesn't necessarily mean it's true or it's right. And AI is pulling from the internet. So you told me a very scary story, a fascinating story, if you don't mind sharing about
No,
your
you can share.
astrology.
Yeah, so again, like I said, I've been playing with it and I have chosen to use astrology as my or sort of experimentation with it because that's a something I don't deeply understand. Although I have someone who does, Jenna, who I can ask and say, "Is this true?" as a reference point. And when I asked it to look up my chart and was asking information about it, I know that I'm a Leo sun, Aquarius moon, and a Virgo, no, Scorpio
Scorpio
rising.
rising.
And it was showing me a chart where I had a Scorpio moon. And I literally said to it, I said, "Hey, I think I'm a Aquarius. No, which one?
Aquarius
I'm a
moon. Hmm.
Aquarius moon." See, I still have to
Mm.
ask Jenna. "I think I'm an Aquarius moon. Can you recheck your calculations?" And it says, "Oh, right. You are an Aquarius moon." Okay. So then where were you getting this information? And I was asking it about where it's pulling the database from, where it's pulling the calculations from. It's telling me. And then I said, there's an app that we use where called Time Passages. It's Jenna's favorite astrology app, if you don't mind me sharing.
I love it.
I said, "What calculation does the app Time Passages use?" And it told me. And I said, "Okay, can you calculate my chart using the exact same system and calculation as the Time Passages app?" And it calculated it, and it still is calculating wrong. And then
Wow.
I'm also asking it, like, what are the career transits that are happening in my life? And it's telling me these certain dates where, for example, where it was telling me that Mercury is going to be transiting my midheaven. And Jenna's looking at my chart going, "Mercury's on the other side. There's no way Mercury's crossing your midheaven in the next 2 days," which I don't even know what that means. So if I'm someone who is using this tool to understand myself better via astrology because it's something that excites me, I might still be getting the wrong information.
Hmm.
So information does not equal understanding because astrology is also an incredibly complex system. So
Hmm.
whoever taught it about astrology, even if they just uploaded every a bunch of paragraphs of explanation about astrology, Mm-mm. It's
Mhm.
not it's not it's so layered. You have to introduce you have to introduce it in very, very, very layered, strategic rollout of information so that it actually reaches understanding. And I can guarantee you, unless they're hiring an absolute expert in the field to train that chat GBT on
Mhm.
astrology, it's not correct. So just be wary.
It's exactly like don't read everything you see in the press. I mean, don't believe everything you read in the press. Don't believe what every rumor about that you hear your friend's neighbor say about your other friend. Like it's just at the end of the day, it comes down to humans. Someone's spitting information out and someone's taking it in. So it's the person spitting it out has the responsibility to give it out in a good way, and the person receiving has to have their wits about them and think about what they feed. So if you wouldn't believe everything you see on the internet, AI is not this like somehow like very curative, smart with what it takes in type of thing. It's actually learning from all the amalgamation of what we're feeding it. So if you think that what a lot of people, or even a chunk of people out in this world, are saying stuff and claiming stuff that is not necessarily unfounded at best, misleading at worst, and on purposely false is even one layer down from that, then we have to really be careful about just not swallowing anything it tells us, and more importantly, not using it to deal with stuff in a way that we think is smart, right? Like, because it's not necessarily even there with emotional intelligence. Someone was telling me that they used it to write a response to a friend of theirs that had an issue with them. And I mean, God even knows what the AI was even pulling on. Was it pulling on therapy chat from like pop therapy on Instagram? Was it pulling from everyone who's ever claimed to be with a narcissist? Is it
Literally.
what is it pulling from? Like a world of right now, we're living in a world of serious delusion and illusion where most of what we look at is not real. And that's the temptation of this life, is we're living in a world where information is more available to us at the click of a button. And as a result of that, it hasn't made our learning easier. It's actually made us have to be even more disciplined with not the consuming the information, the sifting of it, and then the actual us activating how we use that information to live differently, how we use it to be different in this world, and how we actually have to sometimes have boundaries with information and say, let me sit in the silence, in the lack of someone, technology coming to save me, because no one's coming to save you, even inanimate objects like tech, right? Where we have to say, oh, I'm not going to fall into the trap that more information means I'm going to be more in charge of my life, because that is so, could not be more false. And I couldn't say that with enough emphaticness. So someone even sent me a question they'd asked ChatGPT, which was, how do I use I'm this, and this in my design? How do I use this to be a better CEO? And I could tell that not only was it pulling from a very, very wide mix of the different things that people have said about meanings of human design, understandings of human design, some of which are fine and some of which are not so fine. But then it's also pulling in things that people have said CEOs should do, which had nothing to do with your design. But you're reading that and you're thinking that it's custom to you, but it's still giving you generic advice. So you also have to remember that it's still going to give us generic advice because it's pulled from the average, and it has figured out what the mean, average, most commonly spat out phrases or pieces of advice are, and it's just giving you that. It's a mathematical generation of the averages. So in a time where we know we're supposed to be individuating and becoming more and more our real selves, and no one has the manual to that except for us, and we don't even have it in our brains, we have it in our authority, and it's revealed to us one step at a time. No one else can have access to that manual, right? It's only between us and the creator, and we can't even access that even in our whole lifetimes here. So if we think that we have to abdicate and sort of give that manual for my life over to a machine, much less a human, to tell me how to run my life as a CEO, I've completely missed the game. You can be sure as hell I'm getting to the end of my life and I'm saying, oh, I missed that memo. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? So that's why it's so important, is like we have to know beyond what we think is like the small concerns of getting here, being this, being that. And yeah, I'm crushing it and I'm on it and I'm so advanced and I'm whatever. All of that is ego still. What really matters to the soul is, did I remember that the goal was to become a magnificent version of me at every turn? Everything that was ever sent to me was for that purpose only and nothing else ever. So if we can actively start to see that in every situation and remind ourselves that, we've already been proactive in our interaction with that situation that life is sending us.
And I want to say too that I'm a huge fan of AI. Both of us think this is like a really cool technology that's going to completely transform the future of humanity. So let's just make sure we know that. But you will also, if you're coming here, you need to know that the only thing that we believe is otherworldly and magical is the presence of a soul inside of a being. Okay. And the other piece is that in a world where all information is accessible through these things, which is amazing, we have to prioritize good information. So demanding that if we're going to utilize this kind of technology to transform the world, we have to prioritize quality. So if we demand that as users of, wait a second, what information are you using on this platform? Then they will be forced as the creators of this piece of technology to meet us at a place that increases the value and consciousness and ability for us to actually use this thing in a beneficial and helpful way.
Which is what you did when you said to ChatGPT, where are you getting this information from? Calculate it the same way. It's like we up level it by what we expect from it. I love that. I actually didn't think of that before, but you're absolutely right.
But even I'm saying too, of like not just accepting that any information that gets put into these things is something that we're going to take, because this is incredible scaffolding. It's an incredible scaffolding. So let's use it and feed it information of quality so that we can actually see the quality results of this thing. Let's just not throw random, like, it's almost like how annoying when you're on, britishairways.com and they've built a chat bot for you to ask questions and someone lazily just put FAQs in there and you're like, this thing is not answering my questions. And you want to call British Airways and say, can I please speak to a person who actually knows the information that I need to, like, that I am trying to access? Like, we're at this threshold. We have to demand that they meet us and our demands.
It's here to serve us. Ultimately, it's everything, and it's not in a entitled way at all, in an arrogant way, but
No.
we are the divine of this life, and so we have to respect that enough to see everything as just here to help do the thing that really matters, which this is a world of where human transformation gets closer to the divine expression that it's capable of. That's it. So we need to have everything be the best quality that it can be, and we don't get there if we think that it's better than us. And you're right. It's always the demand that drives the supply. And so if we're settling for less, or we're just accepting what it's giving us without up-leveling our expectations, you're right, it's going to plateau and it's only going to make us, stay down in the sort of low-level consciousness that most of us are sort of done with. So we're really excited. We're really excited. I'm excited about most tech, and so are you. With also the knowing that we're really excited because humans are going in the right direction. And that's what gives us faith in it. And so it's both encouraged to be excited, but also a call to, this is why it matters even more that you take command of your own life and remember that you are always the one in charge, because that's what's going to make it turn out really well. And don't give up that remembrance for anything, no matter how many temptations are going to be coming through thick and fast to ask you to forget that. And we will always be here to remind you.